Hey, what's up, everyone? Josh here with the Entrepreneur's Playbook, where we help 7- and 8-figure business owners ignite their financial superpowers. Here, as always, with Ron Parisi. Ron, how you doing this week?
Wonderful, Josh. Looking forward to getting in. Here we are. This is probably going to drop early May, and we're past the tax season. We had a really successful tax season, and really enjoy just conversing with you and seeing what's on our minds here.
Yeah. So one thing you don't really notice this until you're on a video camera. I was out playing pickleball last week and wearing a headband, and I can see this giant white thing on my forehead. So everyone out there watching, you enjoy that white forehead.
Yeah.
I think you got a cool topic today that you want to talk about. Why don't you introduce, and we can go from there.
Yeah, I've been doing some work on stretch goals, and so I thought it would be interesting. And what I mean by stretch goals, right? It would be taking something that you have plotted along. Okay, what's your annual goal, and maybe shortening the time frame, or you take a goal that's, when I accomplish A, B, and C, I'll go after D. Well, what would happen if you went after D today, and what would your life look like, and how different would it be? And I think the first thing, clients that we talk about this with, there's a risk, right? There's a risk that's not going to pan out, and there's a risk because usually to get to D, right, to get to your big goals, there's usually a financial commitment. There's big bets, right? Big financial commitments, or the bets come with the financial commitments. And what I think has been interesting is plotting those big bets out. And I think what I've been finding with my clients is the risk isn't as big as you think it is to make these big bets. I just thought it would be, so again, I guess, let's just give a background for anybody who's not very familiar with CPA on Fire's approach, right? Our approach is go forward, right? No rear view accounting, meaning, yes, there's things to glean from the rear view, but looking in the past. But really, the rear view is only there to help us with the forward looking. And the forward looking is your forecast, is how do you match your goals with your financials, right? With particularly your profitability, your revenue, your expenses, and your profitability. And then what is it going to take from a balance sheet perspective as far as assets and commitments? So matching those stretch goals, right? And to those forward-looking financials to really backstop you and help you with that risk evaluation, I think has been serving my clients immensely well. And I know you and I would just started to talk about it, right? So I know you're a big real estate investor, right? So again, how many properties are you looking to acquire this year?
Yeah, so going into 2024, my goal is to acquire 15 properties.
15 properties. And so my question to you would be, let's just say, can you acquire 15 properties in the next 3 months? What would need to happen, right? Obviously, the first thing that comes to my mind, right? You're here in a growing area of Ohio and Columbus, right? Intel's now here, Amazon's here. There's not a lot of opportunities, right? There's a housing shortage. How would you get those opportunities, right? And then the next big thing is, how do you finance those opportunities, right? Who's going to finance you? How fast can you close? But automatically, does your mind shift? What comes to your mind, Josh, when you start thinking, how am I going to do 15 properties this?
It's a really interesting question, because like you talked about, there's risk that comes with that increased goal, because like you said, it's a financial outlay. If I buy 15 properties in 3 years, number one, how do I finance it? How do I get the team in place that can rehab those properties as needed? Like you said, it's a booming market where it's hard to find deals. How do I find 15 in a quarter to do? So it's super interesting. And I've always been big on goal setting. Every year I write out my goals for the year, very specific. And that's something I always struggle with. I want to push myself, but I also want to hit those goals, right? I'm almost scared to put 60 properties instead of 15 properties because I don't want to fall short of that. So that's an interesting thing to think about. What would that look like to do 15 in a quarter instead of 15 for a year?
I know, but you're an entrepreneur at heart, right? Look at you. Your instant reaction is, oh man, first of all, I don't have a team to do it, right?
Right.
Second of all, I don't have the banking to do it, right? And then lastly as well, the way I go about identifying opportunities, right? Maybe that's not going to produce, even if say you have a 50% close rate, 30 opportunities, right? All of a sudden, I think as an entrepreneur, right, you start questioning every step of the way, right? And what do I need to upgrade that? And to upgrade that, right, you may need to build a better team, right? Both on your scouting, right? or maybe the process about which you get opportunities. And then maybe too, your rehab guys, maybe your current guys, right? I don't know, maybe those guys are like what I call the 5 to 9ers, right? After their real job, they're doing stuff at night. Maybe you really need to get a full working team to be able to rehab and hire people full time, right? I'm just saying your mind shifts, right? And then the first thing you're going to tell me is, hey, Ron, I can't afford to do this, or the risk is too great. I got a mortgage, I got kids. And I'm going to tell you, like, let's sit down and let's map it out going forward. What is it really going to take? And I don't know, it's been a really interesting exercise going through this.
Yeah. And it's what's interesting is like when you say that, my first instinct is not possible. Couldn't do it. Then I'm like, I know people in real estate in Columbus that are doing that and more. So if they can do it, what are they doing different that I'm not doing? It's clearly possible. So they're taking a risk that so far I haven't been willing to take. So yeah, it poses an interesting question.
I think it goes too deep into you, right? Into your skill set, right? Some of it is, I've heard my clients use the word imposter syndrome or something like that, but it really is like deep down, right? And so you've seen people do it, right? What are they doing differently that you're not doing, right? And I think putting the steps in place like you just did, right? The big 3, right? Opportunity, how do we build it out, and who's going to support me? Yeah, you got to map that out. You got to put some cost to that, right? But you also got to look at what's the upside, right? And then what I think, like, what we do really well is like we do different scenarios, right? And you find, like, even if it doesn't work out, are you in a worse spot than you are today?
Right.
And I think the next question I would ask you is, how much money are you leaving on the table? I ask that question a lot to my clients, both in tax planning, right? Profitability, right? I think we all leave money on the table, but for you in your business, is there an opportunity cost that you're bypassing by not going after 15 properties in the next 90 days, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like it's like, I know it's in accounting terms, it's an off P&L cost, but it's realizable. And
no, it's interesting. And I think the other thing that's interesting about this is for entrepreneurs listening to this, is your financial team talking to you about this? Because the majority of tax preparers and bookkeepers, they're like, we always talk about, it's rear view. This is what you did. These are the taxes you owe. And probably if they're good, this is how we can save you some taxes going forward. But are they pushing you and saying, okay, what is your goal? Why isn't your goal 4 times that, 10 times that? And I can say firsthand that you and I were on a call, last week sometime or a couple weeks ago with a potential new client at CPM Fire, and you were pushing them on this. Okay, this is what you're doing, but what would it look like if you did this? But I think whether it's CPM Fire or anyone else in your financial world, you need to have people, if you want to get better and grow that business, you need to have the financial people that are willing to push you on that and not just tell you what those numbers have looked like. What could they look like?
Yeah, it's entrepreneurship is sometimes a lonely business, right? You feel really isolated because maybe you're the only one who's thinking that this is possible. And like I say, it's nice to surround yourself with it. You don't have to bring on a full-time CFO or a full-time accountant. You can fractionalize with our services. And there's twofold, right? We're going to push you, but 2 is that we see people doing it every day. So it's not like we're just talking to you about open air, right? What could be. Like, we see it every day, right? We're having people increase their top line, bottom line by 6-7 figures monthly, annually. So like, we see it's happening, right? So that's why I feel pretty confident. I don't know your situation in Columbus and real estate, but I know like you said, I know there's people out there and that are doing it, and it's exciting, terrifying. But I think the important piece, that's a great point. Like, the important piece, you got somebody who understands it, who understands you, and can help you vet your ideas, and most importantly, do that forward looking. So really quantitatively evaluate the risk from a financial standpoint. So.
Right. And I think the other important thing is you can have someone like Grant Cardone screaming at you to 10x your goals, right? And that's fine. But you also need someone that can sit there and say, okay, yes, let's 10x those goals. And this is what makes sense to do it. Because if you just go spend 10 times the advertising, that might not be a good scenario for you. So you need someone that can actually look at those numbers and tell you what's been getting results and what looks like it'll get results moving forward. Otherwise, trying to 10x it could get you in serious trouble.
I think too, yeah, it's very few. I think let's just use you for an example, right? If you were to 10x your spend, right? Would you get 10x the value? No, probably not. You're going to need to do things differently, right? You're going to need to approach things differently. And then how do you map that out? And again, like it always goes back to what we talk about, right? You map it out, but then you course correct, right? You test, you evaluate. If things are going well, right? You need to know as soon as possible. Are things going well? You go after it. Things aren't going well. They're hurting your profitability. Okay, we need to course correct and go in a different direction. It's that setting and then evaluating, course correcting. That's like the secret sauce to it all.
Right, for sure. And there's always going to be a risk in this. There's no guarantee, no matter how good your financial people are, there's no guarantee the strategy that they lay out is going to work. But it's got to be strategic risk taking, right? It can't just be, let's just roll the dice, bet on this, and hope for the best.
That's what I see is people are like, oh, like you said, Cardone, or who's the other guy? Alex, I think. Yeah, they talk about big goals, but they don't really give you, and everybody's different, they don't really give you the roadmap. You have to come up with the roadmap and you have to evaluate it. And one of the ways is looking at the risk and looking at the financial risk and looking at the upside and how to control the downside. Well, I appreciate it, Josh. It was a good little chat here.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to hang up and reevaluate everything I'm doing. So.
Go back to your goal sheet.
That's right.
Yeah.
So awesome. Thanks for the good topic today, and we'll be ready for another one next week. And as always, if our audience has suggestions, things they want to hear about, we'd love to answer those questions for you. So feel free to reach out.
I was gonna say, yeah, we're definitely getting more and more people watching it, so it's awesome. So
cool. All right, Ron. We will see you next week.
All right. Thanks, Josh. You have a good one, bud. Appreciate it.